What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another exclusive episode of Big Blue Avenue. Tom Scavetta here with a very special guest, returning guest, actually. I know you were on our live stream about 8 or 9 months back, but we have you here today on a special recorded episode. Chris, the Entertainah Talkin Sports. Chris, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate you having me on. Always love talking New York Giants football, and I'm sure we got a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Last time I had you on with my buddy Hank. He's out today, but I'm looking forward to chatting with you here. Before we get any further, make sure to follow us on our Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube channel at Big Blue Avenue. A lot of exclusive content up to date. We're going to be doing a 53-man roster prediction within the next couple of days, so really looking forward to that. Now, Chris, before we kind of dive into things, just tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel and what you do over there.
Yeah, I mean, I mainly talk obviously Giants. I mix in some Knicks, a little bit of Mets, the teams that I talk about, but it's mainly Giants. Do a lot of live streams, a lot of Q&As, get to talk to the chat, do live shows, and videos here and there when there's something worthy of talking about. So I just can't wait for the football season. It's the most excited I've been for a Giants season since I've been on YouTube, which is now going on my 4th season.
Wow, this is awesome. Yeah, and I know I've been following your channel for about 2 years now. Definitely probably my favorite content creator.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you post a lot of good stuff that I find very intriguing. You also have a good knack of kind of keeping, your videos straight and to the point where you kind of, you guide the viewer in a certain direction that gets them excited to watch. So that definitely intrigues me. But
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Giants lose preseason game number 1, but there was a lot of buildup heading into the game this past week. We had Giants Fan Fest, which I was very excited about. Truly an awesome event, by the way. I know you had an awesome discussion with license plate guy Bobby and Justin from Talkin Giants. So just talk about your experience doing that and Fan Fest as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, since I've been on YouTube, I've been to one other Giants game. When my channel first started, I had almost no subscribers. I think I went to a game that year too. But, 2019, I was starting to grow a little bit. I went to a game, and it was not the same experience. I think maybe like 4 or 5 people picked me out while I was there at the Fan Fest. And keep in mind, it's like a third of the size of a normal game. First off, the tailgate was incredible. Getting to meet Bobby, Justin, so many content creators. The Hub was there. So many. But so many long-time subscribers and content creators. Getting to meet License Plate Guy. Doing a show outside of MetLife Stadium, that was a really it was a surreal feeling. I never thought ever that we'd have that kind of crowd. We probably had about 100, 150 people watching us do the show. And, I had people I must have taken like 200 pictures, and people were asking for my autograph, which I did not expect under any circumstances. And it was just really cool, man. It was a really cool experience to get to meet so many people that really do appreciate what I put out.
Yeah, I got to learn how to forge your signature there a little bit. Getting to sign all those autographs, feeling like Eli Manning out there. But yeah, no, it was an awesome experience. And I came in a little late. I had to go straight to the stadium when I got there, got out of work late. But I enjoyed the practice as a whole. I thought Joe Judge was truly outstanding the way he handled that practice, kind of like what most Giants fans would expect. A hard-nosed practice, nothing too intense, but, to the point where we had a lot of fun. We saw some guys make some plays. It was tough to see Sterling Shepard, we're number 3, but it is what it is. Used to seeing him in that number 87, but let's talk about that preseason game. And I know the biggest concern through following your channel and putting up constant videos throughout the offseason is the Giants offensive line. And we've been talking about the offensive line since we were 46.
Yeah, it feels like
pretty much. The O-line was poor, but I got to admit the starters were okay in limited action. I know the Jets had 5 sacks for the night, and Matt Peart did give up 1 sack early. I thought he opened his hips up a little bit too much. I think he has a hip placement problem off the snap, especially in pass protection. But I thought he bounced back pretty well after giving up that sack. Do you think he's the guy at right tackle, or is Nate Solder going to fill in that void?
I think he's going to get the start of the year. Matt Peart on the right side. I think that's kind of been what Gettleman's been gearing us towards his fans this entire offseason. He came out and said that we got to give the young guys a chance. Peart's been getting the first team reps. But I'd be lying to you, if I told you that I'm completely sold on Matt Peart. I mean, it's a guy who didn't play a whole lot last year, situational here and there, showed some good, showed some bad. This guy with a lot of upside. He's got the physical tools. There's no doubt about that. But like you said, there's times, specifically on the third play of that drive, where you say to yourself, "This guy's not ready." I remember against the Ravens last year, he gave up 3 sacks. And they were all like back to back to back.
Right.
So he's definitely a major question mark, I think, going into this year. But I do think if Parrott really struggles, like the first 3-4 weeks, I do think they won't be shy to throw Nate Solder into the starting lineup, because I do think Solder could at least step in and provide satisfactory tackle play. I don't think he's going to be great, but I think he could be decent. He could do kind of what Cam Fleming did last year, maybe a little bit better if Matt Parrott is really struggling, because you can't have your quarterback getting killed.
Right, and we restructured his deal for him to come back. He took a steep pay cut to come back with the football team, so he's happy to just be back. It was great to see him on the field at FanFest. Obviously, Solder didn't play in the preseason game. Neither did Shane Lemieux. But one guy who did look good was Will Hernandez. He looked pretty solid. He had a nice pull on that Corey Clement run. And he lost about, I think, like 15, 20 pounds this offseason. So he really showed on the field the first couple of drives. And that's really good to see, being that he's switching to the right guard position now. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, Shane Lemieux, took over his spot at left guard. But in my opinion, with the loss of Kevin Zeitler, they trust Hernandez moving more than Shane Lemieux. I don't know what your thoughts were about that.
Yeah, I mean, I said it in my live stream yesterday. The one player that stood out more so than anybody else to me, at least in terms of a guy that I think is going to be an impact player in this team this year, it was him. I mean, Will Hernandez, like you said, it was really clear that the weight loss definitely paid off. You weren't seeing rookie Will Hernandez getting out, making that pull to make that run for Corey Clement. And it wasn't just that. His pass protection was very good. Will Hernandez, I think, is going to be a huge, huge factor as to whether or not this New York Giants offensive line could at least approach league average. We need him to take a major step up this year, and he's a guy that I think we should be able to depend on, at least to be an average guard in the NFL for this offensive line. And I think a lot of Giants fans kind of swept him under the rug last year, right? Because I thought he was actually starting to play better. He got up to a slow start, but I thought he was starting to play better before he got COVID. And then he got COVID, and then obviously Lemieux got inserted into the lineup, and the Giants never really looked back. But I still think Will Hernandez could be a good player. And, yeah, to me, he was the guy that stood out the most. I thought Thomas played pretty well too, but I thought Will Hernandez was the best part of the offensive line against the Jets.
And usually when you enter that contract year, that's when guys start to show up, right? So Will Hernandez entering year 4, he's considered a polished veteran on this football team now. So hopefully, he's able to fill in that void at right guard left by Zeitler. And then, big injury Saturday night. Kyle Murphy carted off with an ankle injury. I think the running back rolled up on his leg. He did play the next 2 plays before leaving, but being that Solder didn't play, Lemieux didn't play, and the fact that we gave up 14 total pressures as a whole, that injury I thought was very concerning, because Murphy's a guy that I think could still potentially, depending on the severity of this injury, make the back end of this roster, because I was not impressed with Kenny Wiggins. I know they're high on him. He's a veteran. He's a Kyle O'Brien guy. I get it. But you give up 3 pressures. I don't know about you, but I think his stock is way down after this game. I was a little bit higher on Murphy than Wiggins, so it was kind of tough to see the way things went down there.
Yeah, I was shocked when you heard, when Fulton was still on this roster, that they were giving Wiggins the reps after Lemieux went down. And I was like, wow, maybe they like him a lot more than we think. But I'm with you, man. After getting a chance to see Wiggins play 2 days ago, I don't want that guy anywhere near the football field for the New York Giants. He looked completely lost on the first 2 drives for the Giants, and he played pretty much the entire game. Like you said, after Murphy went down, they had to reinsert him into the lineup. And, I'll say this, man. 2 observations I made from that game. One, maybe the starting offensive line isn't as bad as we think, and we'll see. Obviously, we're going to get a lot more looks at them throughout the next 2 preseason games, and Lemieux wasn't in there. But overall, outside of that one play by Parrott, I thought the starters held their own. But the other observation I had is, if we have any injuries to this offensive line, you better go to church and say a prayer before the game, because we have no depth whatsoever outside of Nate Solder on this offensive line that I have confidence that could step in and not embarrass themselves. So that's something the New York Giants got to get working on.
Absolutely. Jake Burton, too, 3 pressures allowed. I mean, if we didn't have such lack of depth, I'd say he'd be one of the 5 players that should be cut tomorrow, because I know with the new rule this year, we have to trim the roster down by 5 by tomorrow. So we did bring in veteran Ted Larson, and Joe Judge mentioned the possibility of bringing in one, potentially two additional offensive linemen. So we're going to have to keep checking our phones during this interview, making sure no one else gets signed. But now, Chris, I loved the Giants draft. I did, but you pass up on a guy like Trey Smith in the 6th round for Gary Brightwell. This is the one draft pick I did not like. I love Rodarius Williams, but I probably could have done without that pick too after seeing Brightwell picked. As much as I love Rodarius, Gary Brightwell was the one pick I did not understand, because this guy, in my opinion, would have been there come undrafted free agency, right? And you pass up on Trey Smith, who's balling out in Chiefs training camp, and I'm just concerned with the O-line as a whole. I mean, you mentioned the starters look better. The youth movement is in full force, but there's zero depth. And I think that one move could have potentially brought our draft from an A+ to like a B.
Yeah. I definitely see that point of view. I think a lot of people were kind of talking about that on Twitter, because Trey Smith, by all accounts, had a good report with the Kansas City Chiefs. They said he looked good, and he was thought to be a 2nd or 3rd round prospect in this year's draft, but he fell due to injury concerns. And if you're the Giants in the 6th round, why not swing for the fences there? But I'll take it one step further, man. And obviously I loved the trade down. I loved it. I love the value that we got. I love the insurance that it gives us. If Daniel Jones is not the guy, the ability to move up and get a quarterback, or just potentially continue to fill out this roster with, high-end draft picks. So I thought they did a great job with that, but I was all aboard the Rashawn Slater train. And in the end, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that this offensive line proves to be much improved, much better, and they didn't need that, that one final piece to this offensive line to make them where they need to be. But if it was me, I would have taken Rashawn Slater at 11. And I hope I'm wrong. I have full confidence that Slater's going to be a very good offensive lineman in the NFL. By all accounts, he's doing very well with the Chargers, and we'll see. I think Shane Lemieux's a major question mark. We don't know if Will Hernandez is in the long-term plans. And the same can be said for Parrott. We don't know what he is yet. So we'll see, man. But if it was me, I would have went Slater in the 1st round.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if we were going to stick at 11. I had a feeling we were taking Ojulari. I just wasn't sure where. I was hoping it wasn't at 11. With the fact that we traded down to 50, I'd love that. But you're right. An offensive lineman should have been a priority in this draft, which is kind of, I'm negligent to say that, because we spent 3 draft picks on linemen the year before. And now we're going to sit here and say we need another one again in the top tier of this year's draft. That's not good for Davey Boy and this football team. And, I am somewhat of a Gettleman supporter. I'm not in love with the guy, but I also don't think the man should be on the hot seat unless they, the Giants shit the bed this year, which hopefully that does not happen. But now we're looking at guys on the market. You're looking at maybe Spencer Pulley, DJ Fluker, Joe Dahl, who used to play for the Lions, has experience with Kyle O'Brien. So maybe they bring in one of these guys. I mean, Pulley would probably make the most sense because he was on the team last year, but we had to cut him due to cap reasons. I don't know what your thoughts were on that. Any potential guys you think we should bring in? Because I hate that we keep doing this. We just keep signing guys and we keep cutting them. It's a circus.
Yeah. My line of thinking and Pulley's not a bad suggestion. I actually haven't heard a lot of people bring him up, but obviously due to the fact that he has chemistry with the guys on this line, it would only make sense to bring him back. So yeah. I think Pulley's a good suggestion. A lot of people have brought up Austin Reiter, but he visited with the Giants, didn't sign. My guess is he's looking for a guaranteed starting position, and the Giants probably can't offer that to him. So maybe that'll change in the coming weeks. But I think the Giants, my guess would be, and Judge came out, I think you said it earlier, they might pick up like 2 offensive linemen. Yeah. My guess would be it's going to be a revolving door until the start of the season, because the Giants need camp buddies. They need guys. So I think they're going to pick up the best potential guys that they think they can, that it at least could provide as valuable depth and be a backup to the line. But you might see them continue to try to improve that as the offseason goes along, as more people are cut off of other teams. So my line of thinking is maybe even 2 weeks before the season, we might finally have our answer as to who we bring in. Maybe an interior offensive lineman that was cut by a team that's kind of strong at that area of the football team that cuts him the last day because they were kind of neck and neck at the end. The Giants, I think, are going to improve the depth. The question is, will it be improved enough? I don't know if we're going to have our final answer, though, until about a week or two before the start of the season as to what it's going to be.
Right. Is after Solder and Harrison, there's a bunch of question marks. The rest of the back end of that depth chart is lacking depth. I mean, you could argue Brett Heggie could potentially be the eighth man at this point, and that's kind of scary to even think about because Jackson Barton outplayed Chad Slade. He was another bad player, I felt.
And I was confident, to be honest with you. I was actually more confident when the offseason, when training camp first started. I was more confident in the second unit in terms of quality depth than the starting unit because I looked at Fulton going in. I'm like, this guy's been a starter. He could be a solid backup. I looked at Solder, the same thing with Harrison. And I said, all right, they got three experienced guys. Maybe you get an unsigned guy to be the ninth. But then all of a sudden, Fulton retires, Looney retires. So it's a mess right now. We only have one or two guys that you could really depend on to step in if there's an injury and not completely embarrass the football team.
And folks, the reason why we're spending so much time on the offensive line is because this is probably outside of Daniel Jones, the one component of this team that makes it or break it for the Giants in 2021. If this team's going to win the NFC East, like a lot of people, Giants fans, us content creators are predicting, if this team's going to make the playoffs, these two components of the team have to cash in, at least be league average at best. So, yeah.
Like you said, I'm a Gettleman guy. Again, I don't agree with everything the guy does, okay? I just feel like sometimes people go overboard. That being said, this is now his fourth year with the team. If this offensive line isn't at least approaching league average, he's gone. He came here and all he did was express how the offensive line had, the hog mollies, this. We'll see. And I do think it'll be improved. Will it be improved enough? We're going to have to wait and see. But a lot of pressure on Gettleman because he chose not to address the offensive line this offseason, and he chose to have confidence in the guys he picked the previous year. Now, conventional wisdom would tell you there's a good chance they're going to improve. Year two, rookies could take a big jump, but we need to see it before we believe it. And as far as Daniel Jones goes, I'm with you on that. Of course, he's a major question mark, but I think if the offensive line is satisfactory, I think with the weapons we've added, he could get the job done.
I agree. I mean, I think Jones is the guy. I've been a Jones believer for over a year or two now, so I think he is the guy, but you have to put pieces around him. And, again, look, we can't judge too much off of one preseason game, but 163 total yards of offense is not ideal. Only 58 passing yards. We only held the ball for 20 minutes, so we couldn't control the clock in that game. I mean, Mike Glennon did what he could. He didn't play many possessions, but Clayton Thorson was the primary quarterback in this game, who we can argue doesn't belong on a football field after that game. 5 of 16 for 72 yards and 1 touchdown. Got injured on the safety at the end of the game. Threw to a marked check down on a 4th and 7. Gets drilled, shaken up, leads to us signing Brian Lewerke last Sunday evening. What is going on? I mean, now we have a question mark at quarterback 3. I mean, if you're Thorson getting these minutes, I mean, you're trying to at least make an arguing case for QB2, right? I mean, you're trying to show out and maybe throw some competition towards Glennon. But right now, this man's looking like he's for sure gone. I don't even know if he makes the practice squad at this point.
Yeah, I think they're only going with 2 quarterbacks. They only went with 2 quarterbacks last year. I think they're only going to go with 2. So Thorson's play doesn't really concern me too much because I never thought he was going to make the team to begin with. Glennon is what he is. Glennon's not going to be a guy. He's kind of like, McCoy, who we had last year. He's not going to win you football games. You just hope if he has to start, he doesn't lose you the football game. That's the type of backup that he is. We know that we don't have the strongest backup in the world, but I think at least Glennon's okay. Like, if you could run the football, maybe you could still win football games. Obviously, we're both hoping that doesn't happen. And Daniel Jones stays completely healthy this year, but the last 2 years he's missed a couple of games. So I think if Jones ends up being the guy for the Giants in the future, I think they might want to start to think about investing in a stronger backup, due to Daniel Jones's injury history, based on the way that he plays. I think Jones, that's one area that I really want to see Jones improve this year, is having the self-awareness when he takes off and runs to be able to set up his run where he could either slide or get out of bounds. I think he's taken unnecessary hits in his pro career while running the football.
And that's a concern. You mentioned the 2 quarterback model. The Giants have used that for years, and that's what I think they're going to go with again. I agree with you there. Usually the 3rd QB is on the practice squad, but with Jones, this is not Eli Manning. They may look alike, but they don't play alike, right? So this guy, he's very mobile, and he has to know when to slide, how to go down. I mean, Eli always knew how to do that. Daniel Jones, kind of has to learn as well to avoid injuries, to stay durable, because Mike Lennon's going to be a very important part of this football team if he doesn't. He started 5 games last year for Jacksonville, and he does have the experience, but we'll see what happens. I don't know much about this Lewerke guy. We signed him on Sunday. Apparently, we worked him out earlier this month, actually. And, he was in camp with the Patriots last year, started 3 years at Michigan State. I don't have any expectation for this guy. Expect he's an insurance policy if Thorson is out for the rest of the preseason so that they carry a third quarterback. I don't have much other really thought on that, but
yeah, that's exactly what I think he is. He's a camp body. He's a guy that's going to run with the third unit. And, if they do have an injury, a guy that could step in. Even if Glennon got hurt, I don't think he would make the team work. I think that he would step in temporarily and they would look to sign somebody with a little bit, more credentials to be the backup.
Now, we got a fun question for you. Did Sandro Platzgummer make the play of the night with that 48-yard run from the goal line, essentially behind what we said second unit offensive line wasn't good at all, and Platzgummer just broke loose?
It had to be, right? I mean, I think it was backed up at your own one. It's a great story, right? The guy from Austria, a foreign player, a lot of guys that fans are rooting for. I think we both agree he's probably not going to make the team, may make the practice squad. But it was it was great. But the best part about that play to me was what happened after the fact. You see the Saquon Barkley and everybody on the sidelines were going crazy. They were so happy for him. And then Barkley gave him a big hug after the fact. I thought that was great. I thought that it showed that this team has a lot of good chemistry. So that's what I took out of that play more so than anything else. But yeah, it was really cool to see Platzgummer break a big run to the right side.
I think it's the culture that Joe Judge has built. Any player who goes out there and makes a play is going to get support from their teammates, and you love to see it. Even if it's from a guy who's on the back end part of the roster. Now, I know he's part of the International Gateway program. I don't know if he's guaranteed to be on the practice squad if he doesn't make the team or not. I don't know how that works, but technically he's still labeled as a rookie according to NBC the other night. I think they labeled him as a rookie, so even though he's a second-year guy. But
you never know. I mean, could he eventually become a guy maybe like Danny Woodhead or you don't know, who knows? I don't think he'll make this team though, unless there's injuries, because I think we're going with 4 running backs, Penny being one of them, the fullback. You probably got Barkley, you probably got Clement and Booker. If they go with another one, I would still probably say Morris is favored over him.
And that was my next question. So you do think Corey Clement is still running back 3? I think he's got to be, as much as that fumble bothers me. I think we're potentially keeping 4 running backs plus Penny if Barkley is not ready.
I think they should.
Yeah. What do you think there?
As far as Clement goes, I actually think Clement looked better than Booker. Clement had good burst, but like you said, he had the big fumble. And Joe Judge, man, he's an attention to detail guy. My guess is Clement's definitely going to be the 3rd running back. I just think he just looks better than Booker at this point. I think Booker will be the 2 though. And I think Clement will be kind of that Dion Lewis role last year. He'll be that pass catching guy that could come in on a 3rd down situation when you want to give Barkley a rest. That's what I expect him to be.
And he also had the play that beat us last year. I think it was week 7, that touchdown, if I'm not mistaken, that 90 miles down the turnpike. I don't want to rush too far on that, but Corey Clement's a good receiving back. That's the point I'm trying to make. He's obviously a guy you want to keep on this team, just needs to hold on to the football, and that could be fixed. It's pure fundamentals, and that's what Joe Judge coaches, So, and Burton Burns as well, running backs coach, I believe, former Bama assistant as well. So, you love to see that. David Sills, another guy I really liked. I saw a guy at FanFest with the Sills jersey, so there is.
Yeah, he was actually at our the West Virginia jersey, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he was at our tailgate. Sills is like the fan favorite. He's like every year Giants fans pick like a player that they're over the top in love with and they want to make the team. That's Sills this year. I still don't know if he's going to make the team. I'm rooting for him. I'd love to see him make the team. This guy's worked his butt off. Got hurt last year when a lot of people thought he might have made the back end of this roster about a week before they had to announce the final cuts. I hope he makes the team. The only reason why I'm leaning, and I've continued to say this, I'm leaning the board's going to be the last receiver is because of his special teams. He was a gunner for us last year. He did a really good job. And I think in the end, Judge is probably going to look at it like, I'm going to prioritize Board being on this final roster. I don't think Sills will get picked up. We'll put him on the practice squad. And if we have an injury, he's a guy that could step in. If they have an injury to Slayton or Shepard or something, then you call Sills up. But I think Board is probably favored just because of his special teams.
Here's how I feel about that. So Sills obviously is a fan favorite, and rightfully so. Last year I had him making the 53-man before he got hurt because he was very impressive, and we only had training camp to base it off of. And, he has been scoring touchdowns against the starting defenders in training camp. And, he had a good catch in the preseason game against the Jets. But a lot of the times, it doesn't – I hate to say it doesn't matter what you do in preseason because clearly it does. Yeah. But at the same time – the whole special teams component with CJ Board, which I was a little surprised to see Sills. I think he was slotted above Board on the depth chart, the first unofficial. I think his biggest competition is Pettis, Board, and Mack. And I think if the Giants keep 6, Sills could be the odd one out because you're looking at Ross, and then Board would probably be 6.
I personally think it's 3 guys for one spot. I think you obviously got your top 4 with Slayton, Shepard, Galladay, and Tony. And then Ross is more than likely going to make this team as the 5. And then you've got, like you said, Pettis, you've got Board, and Sills. I think those 3 guys are competing for one spot. And I think, think of Joe Judge, a guy that really prioritizes special teams. I don't know, man. I think Board's going to have the upper hand.
I'm going to bring this argument into it. And I totally agree with what you're saying. But due to the injury to Toilolo and Cole Haikatini with the hip injury, do the Giants go with 7 receivers and 3 tight ends?
Possible.
Due to talent. I know they want to run that 12 personnel, but you have Elijah Penny. Look, we know he's who he is. Do they change the dynamic a little bit? Because I'm reading stuff that Kyle Rudolph might not be ready till week 3.
Not bad.
Potentially. And that is not good, where you're looking at Caden Smith, Evan Ingram, and Haikatini goes down. Who's next?
Bryson
Is it
John?
Bryson John?
Yeah.
Nakia Griffin-Stewart? So it's going to be one of those 2 unless we claim somebody off waivers. Could Sills make the roster off of that? So the 7 and 3, which you can argue no because of the 12 personnel they've been showing.
Yeah. Because last year they only went with 5.
Right.
They only went with 5 receivers last year. If they go with 7, I think Sills is making the team. I don't think Pettis is making this team.
I agree.
And I like Pettis. I thought Pettis did a good job for us last year. But, I think that, we talk about how we're not deep at guard. We're really deep at wide receiver. And I'm sure there's teams that are really deep at guard, and that's when we're going to pluck them off. But yeah. I think the Giants are going to have an unfortunate cut because Pettis clearly, in my opinion, belongs on an NFL roster. I just think we're too stacked at the position.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm rooting for Sills, but it still is an uphill battle. He has to show more to me to ensure that he's going to make this team because CJ Board played very well as well. Now, my player of the game from the preseason game is Carter Coughlin. He showed out. There was questions at the linebacker 4 spot going into the game. We waived Kel Garrett hours before FanFest began. And we signed Willie Henry, defensive tackle, and TJ Brunson now tore his ACL, which is a shame because I like that guy. I thought he could potentially compete. But Coughlin, I thought he solidified the linebacker 4 role on Saturday. I think he'll play both weak side and middle. He's looked like a polished veteran at the position. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Lawrence Tynes tweet on the 3rd and long play, cut everybody on the field on that play except for Carter Coughlin on how bad that was. Coughlin was the only one showing effort running after the running back. I forget who that was.
I didn't see I know the play you're talking about. I didn't see the tweet, but yeah, I know the play you're talking about.
Yeah, Lawrence Tynes is a funny guy, social media. But I thought he looked good. I mean, where do you think he'll be most effective? I think Patrick Graham could deploy this guy pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, I think I don't think he's gonna be a starter, even though I wouldn't be shocked. It's not like he's got tremendous competition there. Tate Crowder we like, but would I be shocked if Carter Coughlin beat him out? No, I wouldn't. Obviously, Reggie Ragland's in that battle as well. But listen, I think Carter Coughlin fits this defense perfectly. I think it's why the Giants drafted him. I think it's why they're cross-training him at the middle linebacker position. But, yeah, like you said, he's a guy that you can move on the outside. I think when he got his quarterback hit that resulted in a fumble, he was on the outside for that. He kind of eluded the block with the running back, and obviously he's a natural pass rusher. It's what he was while he was at Minnesota. But he looked like he was pretty comfortable playing in the middle, and he did a damn good job. I think Coughlin's definitely going to make this team, and he may eventually compete to be a starting linebacker for this football team.
And his couple of quarterback hits that he had last year and 1 sack came from that weak side linebacker spy role. It didn't come from the edge position, which I think he's a little undersized for the edge position. I think this suits him a lot better, where I think long term you could potentially be looking at him next to Blake Martinez if he continues to develop. Right now, I think Tay Crowder's the guy who should be the weak side starter.
I agree with you.
Reggie Ragland's more of a run stuffer, which, by the way, Reggie Ragland had an outstanding game, too. He had 4 tackles, and he defended a pass, too. He had 1 pass defended, a guy who's not known for his pass coverage. I thought he was pretty solid. By the way, we just waived Clayton Thorson injured, so just got the update right now.
There you go. So we got news when we were live.
He's gone, so there you go. One guy, I was surprised to see him come in late. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his, back to the Fran Tarkenton days, I'm a diehard Giants fan, but if there's one team I have somewhat of a soft spot for, it is the Minnesota Vikings. And when we signed Afadio Denibo, I was like, I really like this guy a lot. I understand it's a 1-year deal, but he brings a lot of much needed depth. He can play the 3-tech, the 5-tech, or the 4-eye. And he came in late, but he played well. He had a tackle for a loss. Chris, where do you think he'll be the most effective on this defense?
Yeah, like you, I'm very excited about Adenimo. When I did my research when we brought him in, people have actually asked me on my live streams, who's the dark horse this year on this defense? I've said him. I've said Fedi Adenimo. I think if he gets the opportunity, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets 5 or 6 sacks. I think he could be a really productive player for the New York Giants, and I think they're going to move him all around. Getman kind of alluded to in an interview that he could even play on the inside, kind of like what you just said. So I think they're going to move him all around. I think and maybe that's not the plan with the starting unit. They may have a more defined role, but if there's injuries, they'll find ways to get him in certain packages, whatever it may be. I think his best role is probably the 5-tech. Yeah. I would say that's probably his best role, but like you said, he's capable of also being a stand-up linebacker. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see how they utilize him. I do think he's going to be a part of the starting unit. Maybe not starter, but he's going to get snaps.
Right, because at the edge, you're looking at Lorenzo, Aziz, O'Shane, Ellerson, and Odenibo, right?
Yeah.
And potentially
Ryan Anderson, maybe.
Yeah. I mentioned on your stream the other night, Nico Lelos. I'm a big Nico Lelos
He played
fan,
well. He played well, too.
I think he has size to be a defensive lineman. If they carry 6 D linemen, I think he's the 6th because they just waived RJ McIntosh. Now, this is all speculation, but Nico Lelos, it seems he's wherever the ball is, right?
I think Lelos is going to make this team now. Because after the injury to Brunson, I think he's going to make the team.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. And now we'll kind of dive into players who got their stock up and stock down. And I want to ask if you agree with me on these stock ups. And there's one I want to explain. I may have to defend him a little bit, but these are my players who put their stock up for the preseason.
There's one guy that stands out, and I'm sure you're going to get to it.
Rodarius Williams is the guy I'm going to defend because I think he's the one I have to, because he did not have the best game, right? But this is your first time playing. You're playing a lot of snaps, right? I mean, you wanted to evaluate certain guys. He played 61 defensive snaps, which is 79% of the snaps. 8 tackles and a fumble recovery. Yes, he did whiff on a few tackles, but he was tested often. And I think, if anything, he's only going to get better from here. And I think that the fact that he played this much in the preseason game is going to only lead to better stuff to come. I think that first game, rookie corners typically struggle. And I think he didn't absolutely get torched. So that's why I'm putting him as stock up. I don't know if that's the guy you were.
That was the guy.
At. Yeah,
that was the guy. I mean, obviously, I agree with Sills. I agree with Board. I definitely agree with Carter Coughlin. Lelos, like I said, I thought had a good game. Camp Brown was pretty good. So the one name that sticks out to me is Rodarius Williams. And the one thing I will say, I think it pretty much shows that he's going to make this team. We drafted him in the 6th round. Judge used him all over. They're interested in how they're going to utilize him into this defense if he gets the opportunity. He played some nickel, played in the slot, played on the outside. So they used him all over. And that definitely you could point to as well as part of his struggles in this game. He was playing in spots where he's probably never played or he's not very familiar with. at the collegiate level. The Giants are probably trying to figure out where they could use him with this defense if and when he gets on the football field during the regular season. Like you said, I definitely think he struggled. He got picked on a lot. The Jets were throwing at him as much as they possibly could, but it is valuable experience for a rookie. So it was good to see him, I guess, get some reps. Of course, came up with the big play at the end of the game. But, yeah, I think he struggled. But the fact that they used him as much as he did, I think it's a good sign for Rodarius.
And another reason why I think his stock goes up is because I think it shows he's going to make the roster, being that he played 22 snaps in the slot.
Yeah.
I understand we don't have Aaron Robinson yet. So right now, I think Rodarius Williams, he's already ahead of Sam Beal. That's not even an argument. Isaac Yiadom is the real question. I think the 5 corners, if you're going with 5 corners and Robinson's not healthy, you go with Rodarius, Yiadom, and then the top 3, Holmes, Bradbury, and Jackson.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with you. I think they're going to be the two primaries, and Robinson. I think Robinson. I think if he's healthy, I think they'll still keep Rodarius Williams and Yiadom, even if Robinson is a full go week 1. I think they'll all make it.
I think they're going to keep 6 corners and probably 4 safeties. I think the 10 best defensive backs. I don't know what the situation with Nate Ebner is. I hope he doesn't eat up a spot for one of these young players. As good as he was last year, I get it. He was a captain, but I don't know what the situation with his, if they're looking to bring him back or not. If they bring him back, I can't be too mad at it, but I really like Julian Love.
Julian Love has to make this team.
Yeah. But after him and McKinney, like, what backup safety is going to make this roster? We just lost Kalu to an injury who wasn't going to make it anyway.
Yeah.
Chris Johnson was signed off the street. He was getting told where to go the other night.
Yeah. He's not making the team.
Madre Harper, and I'll get in. Well, before we get to my stock down, I just want to say another thing too. Cam Brown, another special teams guy. You mentioned special teams before. 62% of the special teams snaps.
He was the gunner. Gunner, right? Yeah.
And he was one of our top 3 special teams guys last year as well. So I was very excited about that. And then Nico Lelos, the 2 pressures, TFL. Oh, and one thing about Sills that I want to point out, I don't know if you caught on to this, you probably did. His route running is good, but he's more of a possession receiver. He's not electric after the catch. He drew the pass.
I definitely agree with that. He's got like a decent burst off the line of scrimmage, it looks like, in terms of like he's able to shake and create a little bit of separation, but he's not a polished route runner, and he's not a burner. Yeah, I agree with you on that for sure.
And now we'll move on to stock down. And those are the 7 names that I have: Dante Pettis, Clayton Thorson, Kenny Wiggins, Devontae Downs, Madre Harper, and Chad Slade.
And based off that list, I already said I don't think Pettis is making the team. Thorson's already been cut. Wiggins will probably make the team, but I got to see what they do with the rest of the roster. It seems that they like him, but obviously his stock's down. He was horrible. Devontae Downs, I don't think, is making this team. And we'll see. He was listed with the first unit, I think it was, or the first unofficial depth chart, but I don't think he's going to make the team, which speaks volumes about the improvement at that position because he was a starter last year when the season started.
Yeah.
But I think they go with the younger guys there. I don't think he's going to make the team. Madre Harper has a chance, but again, I wasn't super impressed with him. Like you said, I probably don't see him making the team. And yeah, Chad Slade the whole second unit was bad.
I understand he's the glue guy, socially wise. He brings the line together, but it's time to move on from this guy. I thought I mentioned before he was outplayed by Jackson Barton, which is not good. Madre Harper allowed 3 of 5 pass attempts for 21 yards, which, it's not awful, but he did play 67 defensive snaps. That's 87% of the defensive snaps. So obviously they were highly scouting him in week 1. I think he will be a final
cut. Which leads you to believe that there's a good chance that that they may cut him now because the judge went into that game saying that, the way I look at this is the guys that are cut first may not necessarily be the worst guys. A lot of times you'll cut guys that you feel you want to give an opportunity to latch on somewhere else at the beginning, when you first make your initial cuts, and you keep other guys that are there more so to be camp bodies. So the fact that he got as much playing time as he did leads you to believe that my guess would be Judge thought that he's at least in the conversation as somebody who's on the bubble.
Right. No, I agree with that. And then back to your Kenny Wiggins thing. Yeah, you can't give up 3 pressures as a veteran guard, but it's game 1. I think right now he probably is the 8th lineman behind Harrison and Solder. There's nobody
There's
else
nobody
I'd
else.
really
Yeah.
consider over him. So, I mean, maybe Ted Larson is the 9th at this point. I don't know. Again, I don't know the status of Kyle Murphy with that ankle injury. What's
Maybe
going to happen?
Hedgie from Florida.
I do like Brett Hedgie. Yeah, I like him more than Burton. Oh, and you and Bad Dog were doing you're doing like a mock draft for the Eagles back in April. I don't know if anyone's mentioned this to you, and you were drafting all kickers and whatnot, and then you were looking for a long snapper, couldn't find one, and then you took Brett Hedgie.
That's funny. I
in that draft.
I didn't
and now
remember
he's on the
that.
Giants.
That's fun. I remember doing the draft. I don't remember taking him. That's funny.
Yeah, that was a fun night watching that stream. But yeah, that was awesome. But you know what? I think he could crack the roster. I think he's more of a practice squad body this year. I think he does this year what Murphy did last year.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And then gets called up later on because there's probably going to be an injury. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news or anything, but there might be an injury to a lineman.
He's probably going to be an injury.
Yeah. Key injuries from Saturday: Kyle Murphy, Cole Hikatini, which was tight end 3 at the moment. Brunson done for the year. Kalu, who you can probably just waive at this point, right? So
yeah.
Now I want to dive into who your roster sleeper is. I know you mentioned a name or two before that, that might be your guy, but I want to hear from you. Who is your roster sleeper that, you'd kind of be mad if he gets cut? Like, not mad, but, you'd be disappointed if he doesn't make the team.
All right. Let me think real quick of the roster. The offensive line, I have no idea because I still think they're going to pick people up to fill out the rest of that. But I think there'll be 9 linemen. I think the quarterback you're set. That's 2 there. That's 11. Running back, I personally think they're going to go with 4, including. You know what? I think they're going to go with 5 to start because Barkley. And I think it'll be Morris. So I think the offense is pretty cut and dry. The wide receiver, like I said, I think it's up for 3 guys for 1 spot. And I could see them going with any one of them. Dante Pettis, a former second-round pick who showed spurts last year. Sills has been good in camp. And, of course, Board because of his special teams prowess. So, on the offense, I think it's pretty cut and dry. I'd be surprised if the guys I did, I don't know. I don't really see any surprises, for me at least, on the offense. I don't see any of the shockers at running back. On defense, if you look at the defensive line, I think there's a clear 5. I think you got B.J. Hill. I think you got Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, obviously Shelton, and who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting
B.J. Hill?
B.J. Hill, of course. Yeah. Those 5. And Afedi Adenabo is kind of I'll say him, even though I think he's definitely making the team. But if he didn't make it, I'd be disappointed. Afedi Adenabo, I'll say him for sure because I guess it's not 1,000% he'll make the team. Linebacker, Ragland, I think, is definitely making the team. Martinez definitely making the team. Crowder's definitely making the team. I'd be very disappointed if Coughlin doesn't make the team, and I think he will. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go with Adenabo, even though I think he's making the team. I'd be pissed if he didn't. Ryan Anderson's a guy that I thought was definitely going to make the team about a month ago. Now I'm kind of leaning that he's not.
Right.
So that's a little bit of a surprise to me up to this point that, a guy they signed, a guy that former second-round pick that I thought had a little bit of upside. I don't think he's making the team. I see him being kind of at least initially, my surprise cut when training camp first started.
I love your pick of Odenigbo, by the way. I mean, I think you know who I'm going with, the kid out of Dartmouth, Nico Lelos. I think, again, I don't know. All these edge rushers are hurt right now, or they're dealing with something. Carter didn't play. Ellerson didn't play. Ojolari played a little bit. He was impressive in the limited action that he saw. O'Shane Zimenez, I do not like. I hope he does well, but I don't think we're giving him a second contract in 2 years from now.
He doesn't fit the scheme.
No, which is why I think Lelos is a guy who could be a diamond in the rough. If there's an injury right now, if there's no injury, Lelos could be the odd man out and be a top end of the practice squad guy. But I think if there is an injury, he's the guy to make it. So that's my sleeper to make.
That's a good one. I like that. Yeah. And I actually am starting to lean that he might make it. I was impressed with the way he played the first preseason game.
Yeah, he was really good. Now, I wanted to ask this because I think, if the season goes well, we can win up to 11 games. I think if all goes well, we can probably win up to 11 games.
I don't think that's crazy.
And I was talking to Hank about this too, who as well. I mean, he feels the same way. I have us going 10-7 though. As long as Jones takes that year 3 leap. Now, I'm not saying perform as well as Josh Allen did last year, but perform better to the extent that people aren't going to be calling for your head. Because last year, Daniel Jones played much better in the second half of the season, and people just look at all these numbers in the stat sheet, and that gets me mad, right? I mean, look, the dip from, what did he have, 24 touchdowns to 11 touchdowns last year? That was the only decline in play that he had from year one to year two. And I don't think that fully defines a quarterback. I think Jones, he held on to the ball a lot more. He limited his turnovers. He still struggles through his progressions, and he has a knack for sticking on his first read a little too long. And with the poor O-line play, you're doomed once that happens. So, look, I mean, the line needs to take strides forward. Jones takes somewhat of a year 3 leap, and I won't be shocked if it comes down to Week 18 versus Washington. But a 10-7 NFC East title has to be the expectation, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I would even put our ceiling a little bit higher. I'm not expecting it, but I'd say 12 is our ceiling. I could see it, like if everything broke right. Like if Jones became I'm not setting Josh Allen expectations. I refuse to do that. But if he became a top 10 quarterback and he was really good, the offensive line was about average, and the defense, we stayed relatively healthy, I could see 12. I'm not predicting it. I think that's best case scenario. I've got us at 9. I've got us at 9 and 8 with a shot at 10 and 7. I've got us in that ballpark, 9 or 10 wins. And I think 9 wins are going to get us in the playoffs. 7 teams make the playoffs. I think we got a shot to win the division with that. And definitely, if not, to potentially get a wild card. So I'm with you on that. I think Jones, the stats are misleading last year. He didn't have anything to work with. I'm sorry. I mean, once Barkley went down, that changed the complete complexion of this offense, the offense, new scheme and everything else. He didn't have a chance in the world, and the Giants knew that. That's why they were as conservative as they were. I expect them to unleash Jones this year and give him an opportunity to make more plays down the field, and we'll see what we got. You know, I'm not completely sold on him, but I'm also far from giving up on him. I think he's got to work on the mental part of his game. Like you said, he's got to be better at processing. He's got to get the ball out quicker at times, maybe make some better pre-snap adjustments, even though I thought he was improving in that aspect as the season went along last year with his pre-snap reads. But in terms of the physical attributes, he's got them. You know, I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying he's, Dan Marino, but he's got him. Like he's got enough arm strength to make the throws that need to be made. He's mobile. He's accurate. You know, we all know he throws a very accurate deep ball. He's got to work on it. I think his situational football. He's got to be better in the 2-minute drill. He's got to be, more poised. And if he gets better with that, gets better with the pre-snap reads, I think there's no reason, as I predicted, and maybe I'll look like a fool, if Daniel Jones stays healthy and plays 17 games, that he's going to throw 30 touchdowns this year.
That's a very realistic expectation. I think adding Kenny Golladay, Kyle Rudolph, John Ross, they could all, Kadarius Toney, all factors leading towards that number. I think Sterling Shepard's going to get a lot of targets this year. Golladay seeking some double coverage, but I think it's very realistic. I think Week 18 versus Washington is very realistic. My opinion is we know the Eagles are out of it. They're not winning the division, but between the Giants and the Cowboys, it's who got better, the Giants offense or the Cowboys defense? It wasn't the Cowboys defense because they drafted a bunch of rookies, and we know rookie corners struggle, like Kelvin Joseph, Micah Parsons. I wanted to avoid personally, but they did get Jabril Cox, which will be interesting. I thought that could have been the steal of the draft for them.
They got great value with him.
Yeah. That's how I feel, but I think our offense got better than their defense. I'm just concerned about our line.
I agree. I definitely agree that our offense got better than their defense. I don't even think it's a question, at least in my opinion. But their offense got a lot better too, right? Because they got Dak back. Yeah. So it'll be interesting, man. I think it's close. I really think Dallas, the Giants, and Washington are all going to be between 8 and 10 wins. And I wouldn't even be surprised if they finish in a 3-way tie. Like, I think it's going to be really close. I don't see any one of those teams running away from the other. We all play a pretty tough schedule outside of our division. We play some challenging divisions. So more than likely, I don't see a team winning more than 10 games. Unless, like I said, they reach their ceiling. Like if Jones breaks out, maybe we win 12. If the Dallas defense is much better than people expect, maybe they win 12. If Ryan Fitzpatrick is really good, maybe they win 12. But if it's where we kind of expect it for all these teams and there's nothing out of the norm, I think they're between 8 and 10 wins, all three teams.
Absolutely. That's definitely a great prediction. I agree with you, Chris, and I wanted to thank you for coming on today to the podcast to join me. Before I let you go, plug your YouTube channel again. Where can everybody find the Entertainah Talkin Sports?
You can find me right there. That's my channel name right there, the Entertainah Talkin Sports. Like I said, mainly Giants, especially during football season. I'll definitely mix in some Knicks play-by-plays, being that they kind of, they coincide with one another.
Yeah.
Basketball season starts mid-October, but my main focus is always going to be on the Giants. Love my football team, and yeah, come on over, talk some Giants football with me. I absolutely love it. Love talking sports and just the platform. I mean, it's awesome. Yesterday, I was talking to about 600 Giant fans for about 2 hours. It's great. I absolutely love doing what I do, and yeah, check out the channel. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Awesome. And the start of the Giants season takes our mind off the Mets right now.
Oh my God. Don't even get me started with the Mets. What a disaster. Like you would have thought after we got rid of Wilpon that, the curse would go away, and everything that could go wrong this year has gone wrong. It's been ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, it has. We'll talk more about that as we go off air. But Chris, wanted to thank you so much again. Make sure to check out this podcast at Big Blue Avenue on Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel. We'll be back up with more episodes with our first Facebook live stream returning on September 9th. Looking forward to that. See you all there. Thank you very much.